Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the Mast Nation. I am the Mast Reviewer, and today I'll be reviewing the Peaks Backcountry Duo headlamp, which you can see here on my head. Real quick, the reason I want to do this review is one, I really like the headlamp. I think it's a great headlamp. And two, I like supporting companies like Peaks. It's a hunting brand, or hunting and outdoors brand. Smaller company. You know exactly where kind of your funds are going to. Specifically, a few people over there. Versus buying a headlamp, Black Diamond, Petzl, where you're going and you're feeding like an entire corporation. Anyways, we're not here to talk about politics or any of that stuff. Really here to talk about the headlamp. So today, oh man, I can't read with this mask on. Today, what I wanted to hit on are like three main items. We're gonna rate this thing based on those items. One, is it a headlamp? Two, does it do headlamp things? Three, does it have any other features besides basic headlamp things? We'll get into that. And then four, I'm gonna just kind of close with a couple of remarks, some of my experience with using it over the past year. So, one, is it a headlamp? Okay, let's check it out. Yes, it is a headlamp. Does it do headlamp things? Absolutely, you can see it. Does it do anything more than just a standard headlamp? Yes. I think if you look at the industry, you kind of look at Petzl, Black Diamond, there's a lot of neat headlamps out there. There's a lot of different features. This does have some features. It does have 6 different settings. It does have some locking issue, or it does do locking so that it doesn't turn on your pack, which has happened to me actually last year, and this is why I ended up buying this headlamp. Was on a spring bear hunt, had a big hike in 10 miles. My headlamp must have turned on at the beginning of those 10 miles, and by the end of the day when we're in the tents and I get my headlamp out, its battery's dead. Luckily I had a backup, but battery was dead. It sucked. That's why I bought a headlamp that has a nice lock on it now. So let's kind of go through some of those features. So, as I said, and this will turn it off here, the headlamp has 6 different settings. So it does have a white headlamp, or a white LED, and it does have a red LED. What's nice is you've got a really bright setting. Here's that setting there. And you can kind of go through the 3 white settings. So turn it off, sorry. The medium, low, and then we have bright red, medium red, low red. It's probably hard to tell how bright these are on the camera, but hopefully it's giving you some idea. And then in this case it's off. We turn it back on, it's going to go right back to the last setting, which is that low red. Turn off again, turn it back on. We go to the light, so it goes red off, then to the light. So the way you turn that on is, obviously it's just this green little button, and you can see it in the little video below. One quick press turns it on, and then within, I believe, a second, if you press it, it changes the setting. So we'll go through all of these, low red, off, and back to bright. Now, what is kind of nice, obviously you can find it for every setting. Whites for if you need that nice bright light, and the reds for if you want to come in and kind of, play the game of red headlight coming in so the animals can't see you type of thing. Typically they just hear you, but maybe that's just my problem. What I really like is this locking feature. So if you hold this down, and I believe it's for 5 seconds, the light will start to blink. 5. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Maybe it's longer than 5. And this is embarrassing. Come on, not in front of everybody. Maybe it's when it's off, you lock it. Probably should have warmed that up. You see the blink there, so now it's locked. And so any small presses of the button, don't turn it on. I wish I would have had this last year. It would have been really nice on my spring bear hunt. But anyways, it's okay sometimes eating in the dark. Lets you know what you're missing. So anyways, so now we're in the lock. So if we hold that back down for those 5 seconds, 5-ish seconds, light comes back on, and now that lock feature's off. I'm sure other headlamps out there lock. This one works fairly well. I've had no issues with it. It's always worked. No problems. So how does this kind of stack up to your other headlamps? Well, first off, the first thing I noticed is the construction's a lot different. So in this case, you've got a machined I'm going to call it machined aluminum housing, whereas your typical headlamp that you're going to go buy at the box store, REI, is usually typically going to have a plastic housing. So this thing's actually pretty tough. It's pretty nice. I think the design's pretty clever. What they've done here is essentially designed it around a really large lithium-ion battery, which I can't tell with my mask, should be on this side. So we have a nice housing. It does have water gaskets in there, and we'll show up. We'll give you a little close-up below. But basically that whole unit is a battery. It does have a little PCB sitting in there behind the LEDs. A PCB is just an electronic board, for those who don't know. Obviously for the switching patterns and stuff, there's a little bit of logic in there. Logic's just like computer chips, don't worry about it, it's not a big deal. Then you obviously have the two main LEDs. What's kind of neat is you can see that it's, you know, an early company. You know, these things that you see on the front end, these little screws. So obviously when they go through assembly, they have to attach those screws. So putting on that front fass, it isn't, you know, just like a nice clip that you would have in plastic. I use nice there. What I really should say is this is actually going to be very robust, right? And if you look at like a plastic housing, what happens to break on those is your clips break, or at least that's my experience. So anyways, a nice, you know, big battery, large charge. I believe on the bright setting it's 8 hours charge time. I haven't run it on the lower settings. I've actually never run this thing to dry in the field. I've done it at my house just to, you know, try to extend that battery life. Which they say you're supposed to do. I don't know if it's real or not. Who knows? Put it in the comments if it's true. Come on, people. But what you do have is a nice gasket on there, so you shouldn't have any water ingress into the battery. And on the other side is actually where you have the charger. So you have the USB port that sits here, right here. And we'll look at that under the camera too, so that should be down below. So you just unscrew this a little bit to allow for the USB port. Screw that back in. There's a nice little rubber gasket here, again, to block from any water ingress. Slick. I like the design. It's pretty cool. The other thing that's kind of neat is the head mount here. The head fastener kind of does detach. I mean, that's not a big deal. I don't know. Maybe that's a pro or a con. That is what it is, really. It doesn't seem to bug me. I've never had an issue with it. And with this nice mask that I can see very well on, let's see if I can get that back on. See, pretty easy. And it does allow you to adjust. Now, obviously I think, you know, it's a headlamp. So how fancy can a headlamp be? I'm not too sure. Does it do the headlamp things I want it to? Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been great. But the thing that I've actually appreciated about it the most, and this sounds probably a little bit funny, is the fastening mechanism. Now, if you've used other, I don't know what's out there in the other brands because I don't have a ton of headlamps. I don't really research this very hard. But what's really nice in this, you have these two clips you can pull apart and tighten, push together, loosen. So when you put it on your head, it's just a really simple, whoop, you get that all nice and fastened up, you're ready to go. Put a beanie on, need a quick adjust, super simple. Now, since you're probably wondering what it looks like in the field, I'm gonna add the next, you know, couple minutes or seconds here. We'll have some in the field shots of it in action. So that's now. Woo! Awesome, baby. Yeah. Let's see. So, yeah. Okay, great. So, is it a must buy? So if you look at Peaks, the thing that you're gonna see is the headlight comes in right under 90 bucks. It's $89.95 or whatever. So it's a little bit on the pricey side from headlamp size, from a headlamp perspective. There's obviously a lot cheaper. I'm sure there's more expensive. I feel like the headlamp's worth every penny. You've got a great battery. You've got good protection from water ingress. I've had it in the rain. I've been buried in snow in it and have not had an issue with it. It's gotten very wet. I've obviously never swam with it on. so it might have an issue there. But from your typical winter, fall perspective, getting really wet in rain and snow, and actually operating it in sub-zero temperature, I have not had an issue. And sub-zero temperature would come in with the battery. I've not had an issue. It's actually performed very well. I have no complaints. Yeah, man. Cool design. I love the aluminum housing. I think some people probably have some comments on that, but I like it a lot more than the flimsy black diamond I have, where I've got it's two AAA batteries, and to access those you have to have this clip. I always feel like the clip's going to break. In this case, with the aluminum housing and then the screwing mechanisms, I just feel like it's really solid. It's not going to fail on me. One thing is maybe the gaskets need to be lubed occasionally. I'm not sure how you would even do that, but I won't worry about that until that time comes. If you're maybe in a drier climate, Arizona, New Mexico, maybe that's a problem. Maybe it's not. But yeah, man, I would totally recommend this. $90. You're going to support a company that's a little bit smaller. Really probably cares about their product rather than a large corporation that's going to have a bunch of Q&A people and all these things. There's obviously pros and cons, but I think it's awesome to support these smaller companies and really push on it. Or they really kind of are pushing the boundaries of what small companies can do in the outdoor space. It's pretty cool. So yeah, the Masked Man, Daddy gives it a good rating. I'm not going to do stars and shit. Who cares about that? It's a good rating. It's worth a buy. It's or at least worth looking at it. If you're looking for a headlamp and you really want to support, or maybe I shouldn't say really want to support, if supporting, a smaller hunting specific company interests you, it's a great headlamp. If you look at the smaller companies that are out there in the hunting space, there's really not another small company that hits on headlamps that I know of off the top of my head. So it's really cool to have the opportunity to do that, I think. I've always thought that headlamps were like a great space that somebody could sneak in and do, because they're really just owned by those larger corporations. And actually what's really amazing, if you go and look at how much money they make and how much of a percentage of their income comes from headlamps, so this being like black diamond, it's or profits I should say, it's pretty mind-boggling. So really a headlamp is a great space to come in at, and I think Peaks has done a really good job with this. So hey guys, thanks for following along. Let me know what you think below. We're going to be doing a lot more hunting and fishing outdoor specific reviews coming up in the next few months to get you ready for summer. Hey, this is the Masked Man. Daddy's out, baby.